Hi guys, welcome back to the Hip and Cool Podcast, episode 13. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that I often find difficult for me to discuss in everyday life unless I'm talking to like very, very, very close friends. I think that I have this stigma around talking about love. I can talk about platonic love all day, any day. Platonic love, I can talk about it, whatever. It's familial love even, I can talk about it. Love of life, I can talk about. Self-love, I can talk about. But when it comes to romance, I'm mute. Like, you're not gonna look around everybody, I'm mute. Like, no. As of late, I've just been having this feeling like talking about romance is just not worthwhile. It's not something that you should focus on. You have friends, you have family that love you. Like, why do you want to talk about romance? And I'm not talking about people who are in romantic relationships. I just don't want to talk to them, or I don't want to hear anything about their partnerships. Like, I love love. Like, I actually be asking people to tell me about their loving partnerships. Like, da-da-da-da. Like, I love hearing about people talk about their relationships. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm more talking about like me, my life, me, Sanaa. Like, my personal relationship with love has been like somewhat tumultuous, and in a way I don't want to talk about my love life, and I don't want to talk about my interactions with love, because I just feel like it always sends me down some type of like negative spiral. And look, not to like compare myself or whatever, but like I haven't gone through like hell. I haven't been like through the worst shit, but I guess in my opinion, I'm like, I don't think that my romantic endeavors have been the best. So because of that, I feel like I tend to more yell at myself, and my internal dialogue is like, stop thinking about love. Like, why are you even thinking about love when you have friends that love you, have family that loves you? Like, stop focusing on this thing. And I noticed that a lot of the times on the internet as well, like, love is discussed in such a strange way. Like, you have people who talk about romantic love specifically who are these sprinkle type of people. I don't know if y'all know the sprinkle lady on TikTok and YouTube. I think she's on too. I feel like the basis of her channel and her platform is positive, because she just wants that women kind of choose themselves, right? And that instead of kind of centering men in the world and kind of feeling subservient to men, that women kind of take a more active approach to their love life instead of being this like submissive type. I don't think that is a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to kind of take an active role in a participating role in your ability to love and in your chance to love somebody. But I don't think the solution is the sprinkle, right? Because sprinkle lady, you can go watch some videos of her for her own, because I'm not about to sit here and tear down a black woman. I'm not gonna do it. You can't get me to sit here and sit and like tear down a black woman. But I do think that just like the kind of trad wife type people who will tell you, if you want a man to like you, you gotta be submissive, and because of that, you know, you gotta like give a man what he wants, and then once you give it to him, take it away. And all of these weird, like, kind of like mantra shit. Like, I get so scared when I watch those videos, because they have this kind of glint in their eye. And it seems like they're like, I don't know, it's very scary, because then it feels as though they're trying to say the only way you can engage in romance, or the only way you can get romance, is via manipulation, right? The love that you experience familially and platonically is not something that you can experience in your romantic life, is basically what it feels like they're saying. And maybe that's not what they're saying, right? But I do think that there's this whole kind of like movement, decenter men, which I think is important, because the main thesis of that argument is women and feminine people take the chance to grow internally, right? And I remember there's this TikTok account that I follow called Hot Literati, and I love her account so much. I think it's a group of people, but there's a main kind of focal person. She talks about how decentering men for her personally meant kind of pouring into yourself and not so much trying to find people who kind of are projections and extensions of what we would like to see in our lives, right? For example, she said she had a crush on this guy that she really likes because he was really into music, right? He loved music. And she realized that the reason why she liked him was, she liked him as a person. Yeah. Most of her attraction for this man came from her kind of just wishing that she poured into her musical side more. And so, she kind of like stepped away from that crush a bit and more started trying to learn an instrument. And now she's learning an instrument. She feels like much more fulfilled in that area in her life. And not to say that she's not going to, like, let's say, go after people who like music, or she's not attracted to people who like music anymore. That's probably not what it is. It's more just this kind of thing where it's like, a lot of times when we meet people, we're kind of meeting mirrors, right? We're meeting people who mirror back to us the positive aspects, even negative too, aspects of ourselves. I find that a lot of times there are people I meet who are kind of past versions of me. When I sit and like love that version of myself that needed to care about myself, I can then extend that love outwards to people who, let's say, need that. You know what I mean? And I find that it's so interesting that we're not really making friends, and we're not really finding partners, and we're not loving our family. We're meeting mirrors. That's really what it is when we're engaging in society. Proactively, right? And taking an active stance in the world. And I'm going to be so honest right now, I am not taking an active stance in my life right now. I'm really not. I've been ignoring people for the past like 3 days. The only person I've spoken to in the last 3 days has been like my sister and my mother. I've been such a hermit the last couple of days because I just feel like I am this caterpillar, and I don't know when I'll come out of my cocoon, but right now I've been in such a hermit mode, and not necessarily, no, it's been a bad way. I've been hating on myself, and I've been hating on the world. This hermit mode is helpful because it helps me reflect on the standards that I kind of hold myself to. Back to the main topic. We're talking about love today. I didn't like how love was being discussed. And I stopped talking about it out of fear that I was going to become one of those people who just like only talk about love. But I think that like romantic love specifically, it felt as though if I talk about love, then that's like opening myself up to being vulnerable to others. And vulnerability is sexy. Hello? I just have this fear that people are going to worry about me. I have this fear of people just being concerned for my well-being. And I have this fear of taking up more space than I need to, right? In all my relationships, whether romantic, platonic, familial, whatever. Y'all, it just started to rain outside, so I apologize for the rattling noises that you hear right now. But so, what is love, right? What is love? I spoke about this a bit in my Gen Z is Desensitized to Violence video, but I'm going to talk about the definition of love as described by Bell Hooks, right? And also kind of what I view love as and how I would like love to manifest itself within my life, right? So, according to Bell Hooks' All About Love, says love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, both in intention and action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love, we choose to love, right? I don't know if it's from this book or not, but I remember reading that love is to get over oneself. There was a post I saw where this girl was like, oh my God, can you please give me advice on how to be more confident? And the person responded to her and was like, I think you guys need to stop thinking about yourself so much. And yeah, it's so interesting because I realized when I center myself and I center my thoughts and I try to get into someone else's head about who I am to them and what they might be wanting me to say and who they want me to show up as in our one-on-one interaction. I spoke about this before too, but it literally is not actually an active present thing. Sitting and trying to conceptualize how someone wants me to act is not actual engagement and actual co-regulation. It's not doing that. Everyone is like a book, right? I was thinking about this analogy. Everyone's a book. Books can like reference one another. Even like All About Love. All About Love quotes so many books and so many articles and so many journals, but it's its own work at the end of the day, right? When you're truly engaging the world, you're not absorbed in yourself and you don't take things personal. It's so easy to say that, right? It's so easy to be, oh, well, like, just don't take it personal, like, blah, 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 blah. In the moment when someone says something stupid to you, you're like, does it really matter what journey they're going through? They just said whatever they said to me. Sometimes you really feel shit in your chest, bro. So yeah, you're going to take things personally because you're a human being. I took this class in freshman year of college called African American Studies, and it was like their seminar class, and it's called Players and Tragedy, right? It was like a philosophy kind of like adjacent class, and it was really interesting. And I was looking back onto an essay the other day, and I have a quote from one of my essays. It says, according to Aristotle, he who is unable to live in society or who has no need because he is sufficient for himself must either be a beast or a god. He is no part of state. No part of a state, right? So a god believes that they are above society and thus does not need to be involved with it, right? A beast, however, is one who acts selfishly, prioritizes the self, and belongs in nature. Humans live in society because that's where they can find justice. It is not found in nature. It is man-made. And in nature, where there are no rules or justice, life is brutish and savage. Society protects us from the beasts, but it also protects everyone from the tyrant within us. Tyrant. First of all, this can branch off into its own entire, situation. The tyrant within us. Like, what does that even mean?
Hi, Editing Sanaa here. So I just wanted to give context to why I even mentioned that quote in the first place. I had mentioned early in the episode that I have been in a kind of sad, depressive episode recently. And when I sit in those episodes believing that the world is against me or that I don't deserve love, I'm robbing myself of justice in a way, right? And in general, just not talking about love and getting upset about love is robbing myself of the opportunity to perceive that love is more than what it has the potential to be / what it is fantasized in my head to be, right? Love is so much more than my imagination. I gotta just let love be and actively participate in that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And in addition, if I continue to isolate myself platonically, romantically, and in whatever way, and treat love as if it's this thing that I will just never be able to participate in, I am robbing myself of justice and also risking becoming that beast. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I was trying to say by mentioning that quote. It's a little bit much, right? But reading that quote, I was like, we need each other, right? We need each other, and not participating in love is putting me on the fast track to, becoming a beast, and we're not doing that. So that's what I was trying to say by quoting that context.
First of all, I was really captivated by this quote because I was like, bro, we really need each other down to the people who bind the books we read, who upload the illegal books onto the internet, right? I spoke about this in an episode already. It's just we really have detached from this idea that we need one another. And in my head, I'm like, friendship and family, okay. But romance, blah, blah, blah. I was always thinking of romance into this whole nother standard. Not necessarily like it's better, but more so that relationships just feel like it robs me of happiness. But to some degree, I have to take responsibility for that. And I can't be oh my God, choose love always at the end of every podcast episode if whenever I'm talking about romance specifically, I'm just no, kill it with fire. You know what I mean? I remember I saw this meme. It was you tell a damaged female. First of all, female, that word is, but the meme is funny, but the verbiage is a little off. But what does it say? You tell a damaged female she has something on her shirt and she starts screaming at you. No, you really got something on your shirt, ma? I was like, wait a second, why is that me low key? Why am I the damaged redacted in that meme? And it's funny because I guess in that meme she's devoid of trust and devoid of love because she just doesn't trust people anymore. I don't know, but part of me is just I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the person who's oh, I just don't want to talk about love. Just let's not talk about it. Mm-mm. And it's so funny. She mentions All About Love, Bell Hooks. She says, our patterns around romantic love are unlikely to change if we do not change our language, right? So if I'm not talking about it at all, if I'm not speaking of it, and if I kind of using it as this Voldemort type of thing, I'm not going to be able to engage in it at all. And that's not what I want. I want to be able to talk about it freely because I I don't want to feel like love is this thing that's like bogging me down. And the more I try to, and you realize, right, the more you kind of tell yourself not to think about something, you just think about it even more, no? Or you tell yourself, don't do something, your body just kind of has an inclination to do that thing. And distancing myself from romantic love has only made me think about it even more. You know what I mean? And not even like, oh, I want love or I'm craving it or whatever. It's more just like, I don't want to have it rule my mind or like rule my thought processes because I dislike it so much. So I wanted to move on to talk about interesting things that I've read about love. Just to kind of, this is like literally, this whole episode is like an exercise for me. An exercise in cultivating better conversation surrounding love that isn't just, that man does not want you, leave him, or that girl is manipulating you, or, you know, I'm not yelling at anybody, but I'm also creating space to kind of freely talk about love as if it's just another thing that exists on this planet. Romance, I mean. So some interesting things that I've read about love, right, that I thought made me have a little bit more hope. So Bell Hooks says in chapter Romance Sweet Love, I certainly changed the way that I talk and think about love in response to the emotional lack I felt within myself and in my relationships. Starting with clear definitions of love, of feeling, intention, and will, I no longer enter relationships with the lack of awareness that leads me to make all bonds the site of repeating old patterns. I think that was really powerful to me because a lot of the time when I'm dating people, I'm not dating them, right? I'm usually dating the idea of them. I'm a Pisces Venus. Lord help my soul. I am very imaginative, very fantastical when it comes to love, my idea of love, and how I want love to manifest in my life. First of all, I feel like feminine people are that way as well because growing up, I was reading Wattpad fanfics. No duh, I ended up having a fantastical view of love. I was like, oh my god, bad boy loves the schoolgirl. Like, no, this is really what I was poisoning my young brain with from a from a young age. So naturally, my view of love is going to be skewed, A. But B, as I get older, I guess I like see, you grow and you see love manifests itself in different ways. And let's say you've also never really had a good enough example growing up of what love is supposed to look like. So you kind of just be like, okay, so this is what I want. It's going to be like this. It's going to be like that. It's going to be like this, this, and that. And like, we're going to have this amount of kids and we're going to live in this country and we're going to live happily ever after. And it's like, okay, let's act as if human beings that have minds and brains are going to be the ones engaging in this love. Okay, now what does it look like? Okay. So like, I think obviously just changing your opinion of what love looks like is just kind of what happens when you get older. So fantasies are fun, right? Are all fun and games until you're X amount of months or X amount of years in with somebody and you're like, do I even know much about this person? I think I mentioned this too in my video about loving yourself. Because I talked about how like there are times where like instead of just getting to know my friends, I was just kind of focused on their perception of me. And because of that, I never really got to actually co-regulate and like be within my friend groups and actively participate in my friend interactions. And it sucked. That brings me to another thing that Bell Hooks says, which I was going to mention later, but I'll say it now. When you choose to love somebody, right? The essence of true love is mutual recognition. Two individuals seeing each other as they really are. In true love, there is no place to hide. Once again, she's reading me. She goes, all too often individuals feel, after the fact, when feelings are hurt and hearts are broken, that it was a case of mistaken identity, that the loved one is a stranger. Part of me, right, even though a lot of my interactions in the past used to be me consistently trying to get people to understand me, I also am fearful of the moment when they actually do know who I am. Because then it's like, all right, what now? Are you going to leave or are you going to stay? There's an ultimatum there. After you've completely understood who I truly am, are you going to leave or are you going to stay? It's up to you. Just tell me which one it is. And instead of like trying to explain that away, why not just show it, right? It's kind of you trying to like give people the blurb, right? Like if we're still using the book analogy, trying to give people the abridged version of who you are so that they know whether or not they want to open this book with you or start writing a book with you, right? Because I feel like every relationship is a book as well in some way. And I just don't think that it's worthwhile to do that all the time in your interactions with people. Like there's a forum for that. And it's not like a hangout with friends every time. You know what I mean? I think it's also really interesting when you meet somebody and you realize you want to save them from themselves, right? I've been thinking about this like concept of like saviorism in love and relationships, platonic or otherwise. It's kind of like that quote, the savior mantra, not the savior, what's the name of that quote? This episode is everywhere and I love it. It's the serenity prayer. It's like, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I think it's important to recognize like when you know that you can't be the one to save them. I have a friend who was in a relationship similar to that, and they were telling me how it was like they loved the person so much, but they knew that there was just work that they couldn't do for them. They knew they had to be honest with themselves and just give the wheel back to the person whose life it actually was, right? So, and that doesn't mean like leaving them alone and leaving them without anyone to rely on. I think it just means allowing that person to take control of their own life. Especially if you verbalize that to them too. I think that's important as well, to verbalize to them like it has been difficult. And I'm not saying that we can't help one another either, but I think in a romantic endeavor specifically, it gets very difficult. Even me speaking from now, a person who has been on both sides of it. Like there have been times where I feel like I needed to be saved from myself, and there have been times where I feel like I was saving somebody. I think the best thing that I needed was to be left alone. Not without friends and family, left alone romantically for a minute. I think it's okay to realize that romantically you need to take a break and figure out what it means to love again. And then remember that means to love yourself first. The love of your life should be the love of your life. Remember how Bell Hooks says that love is contributing to the spiritual growth of oneself. And if you can't contribute to that growth first, you can't contribute to the growth of anyone else. And I'm telling you this firsthand out of like panic attacks, mental breaks, where I'm sitting here and I just like cannot, because I'm thinking about the state of the world, thinking about other people harming themselves and just breaking down about the state of friends and family and politics, breaking down and forgetting your connection to yourself and losing the connection to yourself is just not, it doesn't help anyone, least of all yourself, right? And I think losing yourself through another person is so damaging. And like, I think out of fear of doing that again, out of fear of like losing my self-identity, I've like avoided romance completely. Because I'm like, I just don't want to put myself in the position, like after like kind of coming out of that and like realizing like, oh, okay, like my head is above water at least. I just feel like this fear that like, oh my God, I don't want to ever allow that to happen again. But Bell Hooks came and she read me again when I was thinking about that. And she said, choosing to be fully honest to reveal ourselves is risky. The experience of true love gives us the courage to risk. As long as we are afraid to risk, we cannot know love. I feel like Oprah when I did that. Yo, Oprah's an Aquarius, so we don't really love Oprah. She's a billionaire. But anyway, I read that and I was like, oh, you know that video? I was just like, oh, yeah, that was me. I was like, oh, okay, boo. It's so shitty. You sit down, you're like, once again, I said this in another episode, like when you realize like you're the only one getting in the way of your own success, bro, you're like, oh, it was me all along. Like, okay. Like when, like, you know, like in Scooby-Doo when they take the mask off of the monster or whatever, and it's like a regular person. That's me. A lot of times a lot of me reading this book was like me taking off the masks of like a lot of different emotions, like fear of love. I took the mask off and it was me in there. I was like, oh, I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for bell hooks. I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids. Like, that's me reading this book. I don't know. This feels like my Bible, low key. I don't know if to say that, if I can even say that. I have 2 chapters left, and every chapter I've just been like, me, like, oh, okay. Okay, here's another paradigm shift. And, like, I just feel like she speaks about love in a way that's so, like, it speaks to me personally so well. And I just love that, like, so many people have read this book as well and just felt so connected to it, because she talks about love from, like, someone who has been in a state of, like, lovelessness and the feeling that love just doesn't, or like is not for her or whatever, and accepting that she is just a creature who cannot do anything but love. And I realized that about myself so long ago. I was like, I literally imbue love into everything I do, and it's so difficult living in a world where that is seen as a weakness, right? But she's like, babe, slow down. Not only is love not a weakness, it's your greatest strength. Bae, like, this book is so good. And I'm already ready to read it again. I have, like, 1 chapter left. Yeah. I have, like, sitting at the very corner of the frame. I'm so sorry for those watching and not listening. So, I'm just going to close out this episode with 2 more sections, right? The next section being spirituality and love. Love is everywhere, not just amongst 2 people. Like, we been knew this. You know that video of Kamala Harris when she's like, you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist within the context of that in which you live and that which came before you. That's the funniest video ever, because she's so weak. Like, she's laughing but she's right, low key. That's the only 10 I will ever give Kamala Harris. The only 10. And it's an 8. It's not even a 10. It's an 8. Being so deadass, childbirth is a miracle. And actually, like, we're the result of so much love of so many eons, right? If you think about how long that human existence, 4 million years, isn't it? Hold on, let me look it up. 3.7 billion years life has been on planet Earth. And you made it. Think about how many chances of life there are, and you made it. And getting in touch with my more spirituality has helped me care more about myself and therefore others. I was on Hinge, and this girl was on there, like, her profile, she was like, mutual obsession or please swipe away. I was like, girl, what? I value my alone time so bad. Like, it's actually so bad. I value my independence so bad. Granted, there are successful relationships that are mutual obsession or nothing. But I think as long as both people are spiritually growing and contributing to their own spiritual growth, you know what? C'est la vie. Do what you must. But personally for me, I realize that, like, that's what I value. This is a great segue into the final section. What's important in love? For me, personally. Like I said, this is kind of like a diary episode. This has just been me talking and yapping about love, because I feel like I don't really do this often unless it's in my diary. So speaking about this and putting it on the internet, what a great way to kind of show that love is something worthwhile to talk about. Love is about committing to your own growth and thus wishing for the growth of others, wishing for it, right? There's a TikToker called Flex Mommy. I love her. She's, I think, from the Netherlands or Australia. New Zealand. Not Netherlands, y'all. Not Netherlands. And she had this really great video where she was talking about values. And so she was like, values are not the things that we like to say in order to make people think that, you know, we're living a great life. Saying that you love and value open communication, that you value honesty and value integrity, they're good, but what about if we dig deeper, right? So a value is a principle or standard that is considered important by a person or that person's like community, right? And she used the example of imagination as something that she really values because she thinks that it's fundamental for good conversation, empathy, and problem solving. And she said she wanted to settle on her core 6. So I realized that my core 6 values are generosity, right? Enriching the lives and communities through acts of kindness and compassion. Empathy, curiosity, specifically curiosity, because I find that curiosity is stemmed from love, and love stems from curiosity too. I realized that we are curious of ourselves and seek to learn and do more in the same way that we're curious of potential partners and friends. Curiosity is really, really important. Like, just generally being curious about yourself. Like, oh, like, what can I actually do? Like, what are my capabilities in this? Or like, when you meet someone, you're like, oh my goodness, okay, like, what are you doing? Like, how does that like motivate you? Like, what do you love about that? And like, just curious about their life, what they've got going on, and like learning more about them. Number 4, connection, like as in valuing meaningful relationships and a sense of belonging, nurturing bonds with others. Number 5, hope. I realize hope is really important for me because the last couple of days I've been like lacking hope. And I find that when I really value hope in my life, when I sit and I center hope, it's similar to gratitude in that gratitude allows you to notice the blessings of today, while hope allows you to believe that tomorrow will be filled with its own goodness worth considering. Last but not least, independence. I was mentioning that before. Independence, the ability to sit with yourself and take time to do what you know you need. How can one's self-curiosity develop if you're never alone with your thoughts long enough to listen to them? Intentional independence allows for all of the above, all that I mentioned prior, all other 5 to properly manifest on an individual level so that one can share their unique self and what you specifically, your book, has to offer. I will leave you with a quote from chapter 11 of All About Love, where she says, I try daily to learn to leave folks as though we might never be meeting again. This practice makes us change how we talk and interact. It is a way to live consciously. Furthermore, to return to the present is to be in contact with life. Life can be found only in the present moment because the past no longer is and the future has not yet come. Our appointment with life is in the present moment. The place of our appointment is right here in this very place. Being present is something that I am so passionate about working towards. It's difficult. It really is. But I'm like committed to it. Like, this is like something I'm literally committing to doing. And there are people who can do it without much help. And I respect y'all. And I love y'all. Tell me your ways. But no, I'm trying to figure out what that means for me. And every day I'm literally working towards it. I'm trying every day. And I really feel as though it's been helping me to love more. Live every day like it's your last. Tomorrow's not promised. Man, oh man, oh man. Y'all, hope you're doing well, and I hope you're taking care of yourself. It's easier said than done, but sometimes you just need a checklist. Just check the things off the list. Get it done, you know? Not for anyone else, but for you. It's been lovely chatting, as per usual. Choose love always.